Now, Washington mornings on the Mall. And AM 630.
WMAL. Jingle bells, jingle bells.
Wow, Frank.
Jingle all the way.
You know, Larry O'Connor, Frank just made a very common mistake there.
Yeah.
The song Jingle Bells does not start with Jingle Bells. It starts with Dashing Through the Snow. Jingle Bells.
Sure.
Jingle Bells
That's
is
the refrain.
chorus.
Yeah. Well, it's just an arrangement, you know.
No, I mean, but everybody, when you say sing Jingle Bells, they go Jingle Bell, Jingle. It starts with Dashing Through the Snow.
Thanks for that. See, that's news you can use, ladies and gentlemen.
Take
right
that
here
to
on
the water
Mornings
cooler
on the
today.
Mall.
Take that to the water cooler today, and you'll have something to talk about. Well, and by the way, we got tons of stuff to talk about today, because did you hear what happened last night at the House of Representatives? We're going to talk about that. Trevor Maddox is going to be here at 7:35 to talk about the Redskins matchup with the Eagles, a very important must-win game. They all are. Byron York will be here to talk about politics, and are we going over the cliff? The short answer is, yeah, it sort of looks that way. It's Brian Wilson in this morning with Larry O'Connor.
Yeah, and Brian, you're so right. And for, putting aside the whole aspects of the fiscal cliff and what might happen with regard to taxes, there is some major intrigue going on within the Republican Party. When the Speaker returned in November and he got a vote of confidence from his caucus to retain as the Speaker for the next 2 years, if you looked at AP and Reuters and the network news, you saw stories saying, the uncontested John Boehner solidifies his role as Speaker of the House. But if you've been watching new media, if you've been listening to talk radio, dare I say this program right here on WMAL, as well as websites, you may have seen a different story. And one of the reporters who's really been following this and the fractions within the Republican caucus is Matthew Boyle from Breitbart News. He joins us now. Matthew, thanks for joining us here at what I'm guessing is the dawn of your Christmas vacation.
Yeah, this is just leaving Washington, but
but last night was a big night for you over on Capitol Hill, and you kind of hang out in the corridors there and you hear what people are saying. Talk us through exactly what went down yesterday.
So basically what happened last night was probably the biggest moment for the Tea Party movement since the 2010 election. And the reason why is because they actually showed their muscle against Speaker Boehner last night. You had conservatives stand up and actually kill a plan that Speaker Boehner was trying to push through at the last minute. His plan B was his it was never going to go anywhere. But what it was is it was a political stunt on the part of the Speaker to go through and try to put through a bill that would have offered several concessions on the part of Republicans to try to make themselves look good to the media and to the Democrats, and then they could go and say, "Oh, well, look, we were going to compromise a little bit."
Yeah.
But they didn't actually. It wasn't actually going to go anywhere. But it would have forced Republicans to compromise on their principles, meaning that it would have raised taxes and it didn't cut any spending. But then it would have died in the Senate, and the president promised to veto it if he ever got it. But at the same time, it was something that was going to force Republicans to compromise their principles. Essentially what happened last night was the Speaker had promised a vote on this Plan B last night. And conservatives had gotten together after the Speaker had promised this vote and said, we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to get together. We're going to kill this.
Well, now this sort of thing doesn't happen by itself, though. Matthew Boyle, let's start naming names. Who? Because they don't just organically meet at a Starbucks. I mean, somebody must have said, who's stepping forward? Who's actually saying, listen, we got to get together here? Are there congressmen who are leading this?
We're seeing several conservative leaders. They include Jim Jordan, who's the current chairman of the Republican Study Committee, is definitely one of the major driving forces from the right here. We're seeing the night before the vote, Louis Gohmert took the House floor and specifically criticized the Speaker for cutting backroom deals over the past 2 years that led to this. We see Tim Fuelskamp and Justin Amash, two of the conservatives the Speaker purged from.
All right, but hold on, Matthew. Here's the deal. Boehner goes up on the and holds this remarkable 51-second press conference. Says tomorrow we'll pass Plan B. Deal with it. He walks out of the room, throws down the gauntlet, makes a bold prediction. You know as well as I do that in politics you don't make a prediction unless you know you have the votes. even
Right.
as late as the middle of yesterday afternoon, even the opponents who didn't like the Speaker's plan within the Republican Party were acknowledging he had the votes. And at about 6 o'clock, oh my gosh, you know what hit the proverbial fan, because all of a sudden they figured out something has happened. We've lost some votes. What was the thing that changed it?
Conservatives realized that this was not the way forward. Conservatives had always known it. But there was what happened was that throughout the past couple of days, you saw several different conservative organizations step up and say, really, people, are we going to keep going down this path? They all urged the conservative members to say no. You saw the Club for Growth step up. You saw For America step up and say that they're going to primary Republicans who vote for this plan if they do hold the vote, and Republicans do vote for it. And then you saw several conservative members, these conservative members that I'm talking about, were meeting behind closed doors and trying to actively destroy this. You saw, and obviously these meetings are behind closed doors, but the Republican Study Committee, they were talking about how they were going to try to stop this.
Well, if Brian's question is, where did these votes go? How did he suddenly go from thinking he had the votes to not having them?
Yeah.
You mentioned Jim Jordan, the chairman of this. You don't think he did?
Had the votes. I think he was trying to bluff people. I mean, I always heard through the past couple of days that he'd never had the votes, but he was trying to bluff people to say that he did, because this was his grand plan. This was his idea to try to round up the to try to face off the president.
If he did not,
I had always heard that there were at least 35 conservatives that were never going to go for this. But what he was trying to do, him and the majority leader were both out there saying that they had the votes. And they didn't. They never did. And
well, from what I've been able to read, Matthew, you were there and I wasn't, and I'll be the first to admit that you were at a closer perspective. But everything that I have read from people who reported on this thing, with the exception of you, is that they thought they had the votes. Cantor was shocked. He looked like somebody had hit him in the head with a 2x4, because he actually thought he had the votes.
Well,
then something happened. And what I've not been able to determine is what changed, because all of a sudden it came unglued at about 5-6 o'clock last night.
Well, Matthew Boyle, is it a case that they assumed that the conservatives would fall in line, but they didn't actually have the firm commitments?
Maybe that's more what it was, is that the leadership assumed that they'd be able to whip Republicans.
I'm telling you.
I know for a fact that the Speaker's office and Republican leadership tried to essentially bribe certain members of Congress with subcommittee chairmanships. I know that they tried to strong-arm people at the last minute. They called an emergency whip meeting when they realized they didn't have the votes last night. But at the same time, they thought that everybody was going to fall into line, because that's exactly what they've done for the last 2 years. What happened was, though, is that the Tea Party movement members of Congress stood up and said no more. And that's why I say this is the first time that they've shown their muscle since 2010.
Matthew, you know what, Matthew Boyle, we are out of time. We got to get a break, but really quickly, if you know, is Boehner in trouble here? Does he not survive this?
There's definitely blood in the water. I would say that there's still a possibility that the Speaker can survive this, but I would say look out. I know that there are things afoot as we speak.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll stay tuned. Watch that byline. Matthew Boyle at Breitbart News. Thanks for joining us, Matthew.